Near-death experiences are those experiences that often occur to people who are near death, and it includes an out-of-body experience, going inside a tunnel and seeing light at its end, meeting deceased relatives, feeling unconditional love, and more. These experiences are considered as a proof that cannot be doubted of an afterlife. In this video, I will prove to you that these experiences have nothing to do with a life after death, but instead that it is all just brain production. We will first start with debunking 3 famous cases of near-death experiences, then we will move and debunk the out-of-body experiences, as well as the other elements of the near-death experience.
Shall we begin?
One of the most famous cases of NDEs, aka near-death experiences, is of a woman named Maria, who was admitted to the hospital back in 1977 after she was suffering from a heart attack. According to the social worker who took care of her and eventually reported her case, Kimberly Clark, Maria was brought to the hospital at night and was unconscious all the time while she was being taken into the hospital. Few days later she had another heart attack and was rescued from it. But later on she reported to Clark, the social worker, that while she was being rescued from that heart attack, she floated above her body and saw and heard everything that was going on in the hospital room. More than that, she told Clark that she saw a shoe next to a window outside the hospital. Although as we said, she was unconscious when she was being taken into the hospital, so there were no chances for her to have seen it. However, when Clark went to verify her claim, she really found the shoe and exactly where Maria told her.
The BBC reenacted it in this documentary. Clark's patient went into cardiac arrest. After she was resuscitated, the patient insisted that she had risen out of her body and floated up around the hospital where she saw a blue tennis shoe on a 3rd-floor ledge.
She got everything right, as she described it to me, and I didn't believe her.
But to calm down her agitated patient, she went to look.
I did finally, on the 3rd floor, north end of the building, look down, and there was a blue tennis shoe on a ledge.
That's impressive.
No, capture this. The incident, as we said, happened in 1977. But do you know when it was reported? Not 1 month after it happened, nor 6 months, nor even a year, but it was reported 7 years after it happened, which means in 1984. And Maria, the person that the whole story revolves around, was never found after she left the hospital in 77. And the social worker who reported it, Clark, didn't provide any evidence for what she claimed, except words.
Just believe me.
And strangely enough, that when she was asked about the shoe, she said that it is somewhere in her garage and that it will be much trouble to look for it. Moreover, she herself wrote that she doesn't remember the exact place where she saw the shoe and that the place she reported was a lie. Another famous case of NDEs, and that is of Eben Reynold, an American singer and songwriter who underwent a brain surgery back in 1991, where she claimed to have floated above her body during the surgery and saw and heard everything that was going on in the hospital room, although she had no brain activity and her heart had already stopped beating. Furthermore, she also claimed to have gone into a tunnel after she has left her body, and that she saw light at its end and met deceased relatives.
In Pam Reynolds' case, it is this unusual operation that she says she observes during her near-death experience.
When I was out of the body, I had a distinct physical sensation, and I saw a tiny, tiny little pinpoint of light, and I went toward the light. And as I began to get closer and closer and closer, I started to discern my grandmother. I started to see her, along with an uncle.
No, for the second time, just capture this. The incident, as we said, happened in 1991, yet it was not reported after 1 month or 2, but it was reported a year after it happened and only to the doctor who performed the surgery, Robert Spelzer, who informed a cardiologist called Michael Saboom, who investigated the case and eventually brought it to public in one of his books in 1998, which means 7 years after it happened. Recently, Michael Saboom said, or declared, that people who have NDEs do not experience the afterlife, which implies that the case of Pam Reynolds that he himself investigated and later on brought to public has nothing to do with dying and going to the afterlife and then coming back to life, but instead that Pam Reynolds was alive all the time.
And I like to say doctors resuscitate, not resurrect their patients.
Another well-known case of NDEs, and that is of Dr. Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon and author of the book Proof of Heaven, where he claimed to have had an NDE where he left his body and went through a tunnel and saw light at its end and met deceased relatives and all that other near-death experiences report.
Did you go to heaven?
Yes.
His first recollection, he says, was being a speck of pure awareness in a dark and murky underworld.
And then I was rescued by this beautiful spinning white light that had a melody, indescribably beautiful melody with it, that opened up into a bright valley.
Your sister, by birth, and from a family that you didn't know because you were adopted, who died several years ago, who you had never met, you saw while you were in coma.
Yes.
What he claims to be extraordinary about his case is that he experienced his NDE while he was in a coma for 7 days that was caused by a certain bacteria, and that during that time when he was under that coma he said that he had no measurable brain activity, which he interprets to be a proof that he wasn't hallucinating or generally that his brain created the experience.
For me, the amazing thing was that I had this rich experience while my brain was completely shut down, soaking in pus. I mean, meningitis inactivates the human part of the brain.
So you were dead.
My brain should have had no experience whatsoever.
Well, according to his doctor, Laura Potter, who treated him when he came to the hospital, she said that when he entered the hospital he was conscious and hallucinating, and that she had to place him in a chemically induced coma and not a coma caused by bacteria, as he said.
It all started by going deep into coma within about 3.5 hours due to a severe gram-negative bacterial meningitis.
That's a lie.
And she continues and says that he was given anesthetics to stay in it during those 7 days, and that during that time they tried to wake him up, but he resisted, which means that he was alive but not with no measurable brain activity as he claims. By the way, Laura Potter, up to when she said this, she did not read his book, because in his book, he does not mention this. Speaking of OBEs, or what is called out-of-body experiences that most near-death experiences report, where they, as consciousness, float above their bodies and watch themselves lying down and even hear what is going on, what they describe is not consciousness floating above the body, but instead it is the human brain alongside with the eyes and the ears that is floating above the body. Because these experiences that they describe can only be created by a human brain, for the simple reason that how can they see colors? Red as red, white as white, and so on. And we know that colors don't fundamentally exist. What exists is just the wavelength of an electromagnetic wave. But the color as such is not real. It is just our brains that interrupts a certain wavelength into a certain color.
Color doesn't exist in the physical world. What exists in the physical world is wavelength, the wavelengths of visible light of the electromagnetic spectrum. The brain imposes a sensory percept on top of those wavelengths.
And for that, we know for sure that other species, such as animals, see colors differently from us.
A new technology allows humans to see the world the way animals do.
Regarding hearing during an OBE, my question is, does consciousness, or the soul, speak English? And what I mean is, if the person who claims to have had an OBE is an English speaker and do not understand Chinese, for instance, and so during his supposedly OBE he was listening to someone speaking Chinese, will he understand him? Of course no. So is each person's consciousness, or soul, speak different language? Or is it just simply the brain that is behind those experiences? There have been 2 studies, one carried out by Dr. Sam Parnia and one carried out by researcher Penny Sartori, where they placed hidden targets, images and symbols in hospital rooms in places that could only be seen from above, and later on they interviewed all people who claimed to have had an OBE and asked them if they have seen those hidden targets. The results of both the studies were that nobody saw the hidden targets.
None of the patients viewed the hidden symbols,
which implies that all that they have reported was just going inside their heads. And the scientific explanation behind what they report is, if it happened during a surgery, then according to anesthesiologists like Gerald Worley, it is what is called anesthesia awareness.
They remember that they were aware during surgery.
And if it happened during a cardiac arrest, then according to scientists like Kevin Nelson, it is what is called CPR-induced consciousness, where the person is aware of his surroundings during the CPR, although their heart had stopped. And if it happened in other situations, in general, then according to researchers, it is linked to neural activity. But in all cases, what they report is right just as far as hearing is concerned. But as far as seeing is concerned, their whole experience is created by their brains, as the studies I have mentioned demonstrates. Especially a case that was reported by researcher Penny Sartori, where a patient claimed to have had an OBE, and what he reported seeing while he was unconscious during his supposedly OBE was confirmed by the medical staff that was present. yet he did not report seeing the hidden targets. Regarding the other elements of NDEs, and that is when people go inside a tunnel and see light at its end and meet deceased relatives and feel unconditional love and all that. First of all, how did they know that it was them who was going inside the tunnel and that it was them who felt unconditional love and all that? And we all know that your whole concept of who you are, your whole personality is all part of the brain's function.
Everything that you think, feel, believe is something that's happening inside the brain. Your concept of yourself and your experience of reality are all things demonstrably happening in the brain, and we could turn it off like a switch.
Secondly, and according to the DSM-5,
the DSM is the guidebook that's used by all mental health professionals. It defines all of the psychiatric diagnoses.
what they describe is merely hallucinations. In that, DSM-5 defines hallucinations as perception-like experiences that occur without an external stimulus and which are vivid and clear, with the full force and impact of normal perceptions, though not under voluntary control. This definition is exactly what NDEs are, in that they occur without any external stimulus, and they are described by people who experienced them as being vivid and clear.
They insist, it's real, it's happened to me, I know it.
And out of their control.
They say that one of the most therapeutic things about the experience was the complete lack of control you have.
Plus that they have the same effect on them as if they have experienced them in real life.
Humans fancy that there's something special about the way we perceive the world, and yet we live in loops as tight and as closed as the hosts do. Seldom questioning our choices, content for the most part to be told what to do next.
Thirdly, and according to researchers, those experiences are directly linked to brain activity. The scientific explanation behind the NDEs is that the brain is wired in a certain way that under certain circumstances it produces such sequence of experiences. Just like when you think of a sentence from a song and the rest of the song follows in order inside your head. It is the same mechanism by which the brain produces NDEs.
The US Air Force discovered that out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences are actually on the same continuum. They're part of the same chain of effect.
But it has nothing to do with death itself, and that is why not all people who were rescued from death report a near-death experience.
Anne says she didn't see anything like a white light or have an out-of-body experience.
Otherwise, this can be proof that not all people have souls, or a consciousness.
Humans are playing at resurrection. They want to live forever. They don't want you to become them. They want to become you.
It is all just about having the right ground for the brain to produce those experiences.
I took one more breath and my entire body it rose up, and it felt like I was floating 2 or 3 feet above my body. I'm not in my body, but I am this other part of myself that I'm completely aware that I identify with. And my next thought was, am I dead?
At the point of the, I'm gone. Like, completely gone. And when I say gone, there is a disassociation from the body. I cannot feel my body at all. I'm not in my body. I'm outside of my body.
But aware.
But aware. Very aware. It was a complete disconnection from the body. But the mind was very active. I'm still me in the mind. And the minute I said, well, I guess I'm dead then.
And then I very quickly went into the tunnel.
I remember going down this tunnel, and this tunnel was like amber, and it was like, circular all around.
And I'm like shooting down this tunnel. All I can see is like purple and green like spirals.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. And I shoot through this tunnel, and I'm going through this tunnel.
Now you're in this light, you're part of this light, and I'm moving at what seems to me like the speed of light. No debris, nothing. Just light, beautiful colors whizzing by me, going through me. And this love is growing stronger and stronger. By the time I get to my destination, I remember distinctively saying, I'm home.
I just fell into this endless, iridescent light in all directions. And this overwhelming feeling of bliss and of being held. And it was the feeling of overwhelming safety, of the fact that nothing really matters. And in the end, it's like going home.
I had lost all form. I was just a ball of energy.
And it's not me. It's not a body, because it wasn't me. Like, it's, I don't even know what I was anymore. I just was like this ball.
I remember telling myself, gosh, what is that, you know? And no sooner am I thinking, oh, what is that? And studying it, I'm able to like laser focus on it better, and I can see that it's flames.
And I remember as I'm in here, I'm like, I see this sprocket, like a, you know, gear. In one of the little teeth on the gear, my awareness zooms into it, and I see that it's like an actual being.
In the presence of this luminous light by this radiant being, who was again communicating with me, but not with words, and not even, I don't even think telepathic would be a great way to say it. It was more like an instant knowing or a download.
And it was made out of these lights that were communicating with me in this way that I could understand perfectly, like thoughts without words, clearer than I've ever understood anything.
I saw the life review.
And then this almost like movie reel of images from, I don't know if it's different lifetimes or different experiences, and this lifetime came up and flashed.
And then I'm seeing the loved ones.
I saw my mom. I saw my brother John.
And what I saw was an infinite multitude of universes and dimensions. It would be like if we took our universe, everything we know about it, and press it down to a single sheet of paper, or that size, and suspend it out here in this eternal space. And then you put another one right next to it, another one next to that, and you keep going as far as you can possibly imagine.
If we think about like the wall behind us, each little piece made out of like a separate picture or something like that, and it was just so much information to comprehend. You know, I'm assuming probably all those little pieces I've seen are all like separate realities in themselves.
I climbed up, for lack of a better word, film strip of every possible multiverse timeline available.
I said, no, please don't send me back. She says again, you must return. The next thing I know, I'm being pulled back through a vortex, flowing back faster and faster and faster, and then I'm zapped in my body.
I was like, please don't let me go, don't let me go. And they said, you're not ready yet. And then I was dropped. And then I come back into my body.
There is not a single part of me that will ever fear death again, because it is the most beautiful, miraculous, love-filled homecoming.
This was like a really beautiful reminder that it's all good, right? At death, we're just going home.
It's all love. It really is. I know it sounds corny, but I just felt protected. There's nothing to be afraid of. I had a direct experience of where we come from, where we're going. It felt like cosmic paradise made of love and understanding, and felt like eternity. But at the same time, I was really grateful when I came back to this human plane, and it made me even more grateful for being alive, being in this magical existence and playing this human game. You know, it's incredible. We're very lucky.
The cells in my body started vibrating. And it was like each cell, trillions of cells that look like a happy face. Like, they're like, and they start giggling. They're just, ooh, everything's funny. You know, and I look down and I go, what are you guys doing? And I hear them say, I hear the cells in my body going, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. And I'm like, who's coming?
Standing out against the darkest parts of the brooding sky was a large egg-shaped sculpture made out of like lattice work of metal. And I could see within it these small whirling patterns, and I could hear their whispering movements slow down within.
And I saw the stars part, and 3, 2, 1 countdown, and life review of Erica Mackenzie.
Are you serious about that?
Moreover, not all people who experience NDEs report the same thing.
While no two near-death experiences are the same,
sometimes they don't report going inside a tunnel.
I did not go through a tunnel or light.
Sometimes they don't report meeting deceased relatives, and so on. And so is this an error in the afterlife? Or is it just the brain that is not functioning properly?
There was a little girl who had a near-death experience, and she met a portly man wearing a red cap.
People who report near-death experiences are not lying about what they said they have experienced. They, and people in general, are just ignorant about the science behind those experiences. And because of that, some opportunists exploit the situation and start writing books and throwing conferences about that it is a proof of a life after death. Just like when you see a black cat in your dreams and you go and tell the priest about it and he tells you that you are being possessed by demons.
You've been keeping this woman on the edge of death in order to ask her questions about meaningless hallucinations so that you can substantiate your idea of what the one true religion really is.
Dr. Eben Alexander, that we mentioned his case previously, about 3 months before his supposedly NDE has happened, he was being sued for $3 million for operating wrongly on a patient. Moreover, he did not practice surgery for a year before his NDE has supposedly happened. So this can explain the motive behind writing a book full of lies. Plus, why did he write another 2 books about the same experience? And even in the original book, Proof of Heaven, he made it so long. For example, this excerpt, he could have said it in 1 sentence. There is this physician and author called Larry Dossey. In the beginning of one of his books, he talks about a blind woman named Sarah, who claimed to have had an OBE where she was unconscious in the hospital room. And although she is blind, the doctors who were present when she had those experiences confirmed what she said she saw. However, later on, Larry Dossey confessed that he fabricated the story. Not to forget the famous incident where a boy wrote a book about him going to heaven while he was under a coma, and later on he said that he made it all up.
And to me, the whole question of an afterlife that I've been engaged with is I see it more as a corollary of the wider question of what is nonsense, because the sentence, there is life after death, is one kind of nonsense.